Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the team selection for Gameweek 11. I think the foundations are there to keep climbing up the ranks and kind of undo some of the regression I've had since Gameweek 4 when I started making transfers for the first time this season. I also activated the wildcard in Gameweek 6 and it's been very mixed bag so far, but I am happy with my setup, and despite a few teething issues, especially in the backline, I believe I can build a very dependable squad, not just for Gameweek 11, but also in the weeks to come. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this to the 200 likes on YouTube and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers, which we're hoping to achieve by the end of the month, possibly going into early December. Thank you very much for all your support, especially in the UCL Fantasy videos and live streams. There'll be more content headed your way for FPL and UCL Fantasy. Check all the links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, the Patreon, Championships Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. I might have to take one for the team and sell some of these Arsenal assets because ever since I bought them on the Gameweek 6 wildcard, they have been poor, and that is putting it lightly. Raya and Gabriel were exceptional in the first 5 game weeks of the season, but ever since, no clean sheets, they're conceding multiple chances and no returns whatsoever in terms of saves, bonus points, or attacking returns from Gabriel. But Raya did get a save point, to be fair, against Newcastle, so this 3-pointer looks much better than what he's produced recently, but it's still nowhere near good enough, and Arsenal are in a terrible run of form across all competitions. They lost to Bournemouth, drew to Liverpool, lost to Newcastle and also Inter Milan, but there was a much better performance in the Champions League in midweek, but still not good enough going forwards. There's a lack of creativity and cutting edge, and it's the same issues as last season and the year before. That lack of a clinical striker or that difference maker up front is going to cost them time after time again. But defensively, I still have a lot of faith in the Gunners' defence. They are still one of the best in Europe, but they aren't showing it at the moment, and I think against Inter Milan they're a bit unfortunate. But against Newcastle, there certainly are no complaints about that result. I think Newcastle deserve the victory, and Arsenal need to get their act together against Chelsea. My review of the defence in Gameweek 10 is going to be very brief because they were terrible. Mykolenko got 2 points despite facing Southampton. It was a very disappointing result for the Toffees, as Southampton got their first victory in the Premier League this season, and it was very close. They almost got the equaliser, which was ruled out, the better one. And Mykolenko has been very disappointing for me. Only one return, which came a couple of weeks ago against Ipswich Town. He got a bonus point there, but Everton just haven't been reliable from a defensive perspective, and they have been improving in recent weeks, but still not good enough to really be in mid-table. They're going to be in this relegation scrap throughout the entire campaign. Let's see how it all pans out. But Mykolenko is certainly not one to keep beyond the next 4 game weeks because Everton have a really tough run between game weeks 15 to 18, facing Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Chelsea in that time frame. My second defender is Rico Lewis, who got a 1-pointer after coming off the bench against Bournemouth in their 2-1 defeat. And Manchester City are another team who have been very surprising recently. They're in a terrible run of form. They lost in the Carabao Cup against Tottenham Hotspur. They got battered against Sporting 4-1 in midweek, and Rico Lewis played the full 90 there, and they also lost 2-1 to Bournemouth in Gameweek 10. So things need to improve from them as well. And my final defender is Gabriel, who is just not worth it at this moment in time, but I still think he'll come good, get a few more goals this season, plenty of clean sheets and a few bonus points. But since Gameweek 6, I think Arsenal defenders have been terrible. There are several yellow flag players in FPL right now, and Cole Palmer is one of them, but I'm still very confident he's going to play against Arsenal, start the game and perhaps do very well. This is Chelsea's best opportunity to get a win over the Gunners in a very long time because it's been a very one-sided contest in recent meetings, but Palmer sustained that knock against Manchester United with that dirty challenge by Lisandro Martinez. I still think Palmer will be okay though. He hasn't been training in the last couple of days, which is a slight concern, but he was never going to feature in Europa Conference League, where Chelsea won 8-0 against very weak opposition. My second midfielder is Foden, who blanked against Bournemouth. He's been a bit unlucky, I think, in the last couple of weeks, especially in this fixture where he could have scored very easily and he created a big chance, but I think Foden still has something to offer against Brighton in Gameweek 11, but if you're kind of deviating between Foden to Son for this week, I think that could be a really good transfer. Not to mention Mohamed Salah, especially if you make other moves up front and downgrade players like Erling Haaland and spread the funds across all positions. But I think Man City attackers can still offer a lot of value in the next few weeks against Brighton, Tottenham and potentially Liverpool, although Gameweek 13 might be the ideal time to sell the likes of Foden from your FPL teams. My third choice in this position was Morgan Rogers, who was yellow flagged very recently, but that has been cleared after featuring in the Champions League. Aston Villa lost for the first time in that competition to Club Brugge of all teams by a 1-0 scoreline, and Rogers played around 60 minutes in that competition, but he got 9 points in the Premier League against Tottenham Hotspur. He opened the scoring and still managed to secure 2 bonus points, despite the fact that his team lost 4-1, which is very impressive, and for his price and below, he is the best midfielder in the game right now. But for a similar price, just 0.2, 0.3 million more, you can go for Semenyo, who got 10 points and he was first on my bench in Game Week 10. My final midfielder is one I really trust, but he has blanked in 2 consecutive game weeks, and that is Bryan Mbeumo. At least he secured the clean sheet point before Brentford ultimately lost to Fulham in the dying embers of that game when Harry Wilson came off the bench and scored a brace, and Flecken, for example, was on 12 points and that went to 4 after Harry Wilson's brace, which is obviously very concerning and a bit disappointing for those that had Flecken. But I think Fulham ultimately deserved to win, and Brentford were very defensive in that match, and Bryan Mbeumo was not impressive at all, and ever since that lucky 15-pointer against Ipswich Town, he hasn't really delivered, but I still back him in the long term, even when Brentford's fixtures turn for the worse in Game Week 15. The best part about my team was in the forward line. Dominic Solanke scored a brace and provided an assist in a 4-1 victory against Aston Villa. Now, there was a time in that match where things weren't looking good for him because Aston Villa took the lead, then Spurs equalised with Heung-min Son providing the assist for Brennan Johnson, and Dominic Solanke was so close to getting on the end of that, so it wasn't looking good. But with that late brace and the assist and then scoring in the Europa League against Galatasaray, I think the narratives around Solanke are going to be much different. He came off the bench, in fact, in midweek. So I think the prospects of captaining him against Ipswich Town are going to be very high this week with the plum fixture and also his very good form in recent matches. He's getting the chances now finally, and he's also tucking them away. So I think Solanke is definitely a great option for Game Week 11, but I still think in the long term, players like Ollie Watkins, Nicholas Jackson, and potentially Isak could be even better at a similar price point. My second forward, though, was Erling Haaland, and he blanked yet again, and in midweek he missed a penalty against Sporting to produce 0 points in UCL Fantasy. His form isn't good whatsoever. He has missed 8 big chances in the last 3 games across all competitions. That's the most of any player in Europe's top 5 leagues, but he's getting those big chances, and it could all click in the blink of an eye, potentially against Brighton Hove Albion in Game Week 11, and then you've got Tottenham at home in Game Week 12, where Man City could score multiple goals and get revenge for their Carabao Cup defeat. My final forward, though, was Chris Wood. He got another goal and a bonus point this time in a 3-0 win over West Ham. Nottingham Forest have been mightily impressive, and they sit third in the Premier League table. They do have a tough fixture run coming up, though. I think they'll drop in that table, get a few losses, and potentially start to struggle even more, and they won't keep that many clean sheets or score that many goals. But Chris Wood is still dependable, and all he needs is 1 goal to get bonus points on a consistent basis. Surprise, surprise, I captained Erling Haaland again. I was very close to buying Mohamed Salah in Game Week 10, and if I did do that, he would have been my captain. He delivered 9 points, of course, but the likes of Chris Wood, Solanke and Morgan Rogers saved me because it was looking very grim on the Saturday. I was around 1.5 to 1.6 million during the reaction stream, but the Sunday matches changed everything, and it all looks much better now, as I'm now in the top 1 million, so I've gone up in rank by around 300,000 places with 52 points for the game week and 592 points overall. It's still not good enough, and what I've done since Game Week 4 has been very poor in terms of the transfers made and ultimately going from one structure to the other, wildcarding in Game Week 6. It just hasn't gone according to plan, but I still think the squad is in good shape for the long term, and with a few modifications, I could really be in a strong position going into the next couple of months without the wildcard, of course, until Game Week 20 onwards with the second wildcard of the season. I've only used the triple captaincy chip. I've still got the bench boost and the free hit chip available to me, but there won't be that many double game weeks, so I need to be consistent and get my captaincy picks spot on, and that's where Mohamed Salah could come in. I'm going to buy him eventually. It's just a question of timing. When do I buy him back? He was very poor for me in that 2 game week period between Game Week 4 to 5, but you have to be patient with high quality assets, especially someone like Mohamed Salah, who has such a high ceiling, but I think he's a dependable captaincy option at this moment in time, and I can't say the same thing about Erling Haaland, who is averaging 2.8 points per game since Game Week 5, but the tables will turn. I think the next 2 fixtures really suit him and Manchester City, and they're going to be very motivated to put an end to their poor streak of 3 losses in a row. With 3 transfers available in Game Week 11, I've got a lot of different options, and I could even change my goalkeeper at some stage, but I think there are bigger priorities in other positions, particularly in my defensive line, which needs a lot of improvement. Without making any moves, I have Jacob Greaves, who is still injured, and Ipswich Town just aren't good defensively at all. Vandenberg, you can say the same thing about Brentford. They haven't kept a single clean sheet so far this season. Rico Lewis is a rotation risk. Mikolenko doesn't have good fixtures long term, and then Gabriel hasn't been performing. So my defense is actually quite poor, and it needs a bit of a revamp. So that's why David Raya will probably live to fight another day, facing Chelsea away, and I don't see Arsenal keeping a clean sheet. Despite everything I said, I'm still going to start 2 of those defenders in Game Week 11. Rico Lewis away to Brighton. It's not the best fixture for a clean sheet, but Man City won 4-0 at the Amex Stadium last time out. It was a different manager in Roberto De Zerbi and different circumstances, as Manchester City were in an incredible run of form at the time, and it's the complete opposite right now. Kyle Walker could start this game despite his poor performance against Bournemouth, and I'm a bit concerned by Rico Lewis playing the full 90 against Sporting in that 4-1 defeat, but he could come back into the fray here. He's got a lot of technical ability and he offers a lot going forwards, but defensively he can be targeted, and I think Rico Lewis isn't safe in the next couple of game weeks, and ultimately I need to make further improvements to my defensive line, not just in Game Week 11, but also in future game weeks. My second choice could be Ait-Nouri, coming in against Southampton at home, but I don't trust Wolves defensively that much. It wouldn't surprise me if the Saints scored 1 or 2 goals and potentially even won this match, as Wolves are bottom of the Premier League table and they're one of 2 clubs, the only 2 who are winless in this division. Ipswich Town are the other team, but Ait-Nouri has the attacking potential with 3 goals and 2 assists so far this season and decent underlying stats for a budget defender, and the fixtures until Game Week 18 are amazing for Wolves. They are top of the fixture difficulty rating. My final defender, reluctantly, would be Gabriel against Chelsea away, so I'm doubling up on the Arsenal defence against Chelsea in a fixture I don't expect a clean sheet, but Arsenal have that quality defensively and they can turn things around. It's just a matter of when. Last season it took them a while to get going, and from January onwards they had an incredible run which almost resulted in the Premier League title. They could do something similar this season, but the gap to Liverpool and Manchester City is already too big. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled on the Friday press conferences and also any bits of news we may get on Saturday morning during the deadline stream, but my plan is to keep one Man City attacker against Brighton Hove Albion. I think it's a great fixture from an attacking perspective, so either Phil Foden or Erling Haaland will stay in my team for Game Week 11 at least, and I could sell the other one around Game Week 12 or 13, but it's never ideal selling quality players with decent fixtures from an attacking perspective, so it could always backfire whether I sell Foden this week or Erling Haaland, and the same goes for the other one in Game Week 12 or 13, despite the tough fixture against Liverpool away in a couple of weeks' time. My second midfielder would be Cole Palmer, assuming he's fit against Arsenal and isn't out for a couple of game weeks. I believe he's going to be available this weekend. It makes no sense to sell him, and I've got decent bench coverage just in case Cole Palmer does miss out, and my priority is in my defensive line. I could even make another transfer in that position and bench somebody like Lewis or Gabriel, because I think both of them are very likely to blank in Game Week 11. My third choice in this position would be Mohamed Salah. I'm very bullish on buying him. I wanted to do so in Game Week 10 and I didn't pull the trigger, and ultimately that cost me quite a few points because I also would have bought Cunha, who got an assist and a bonus point against Crystal Palace, and I still think that's the right course of action for my team. But the question is, which midfielder do I sell for Mohamed Salah? Is it Rodgers, Semenyo, Palmer, Foden? It's just not an easy question to answer. And even up front, if I want to buy Cunha to facilitate this move, do I sell Dominic Solanke or Erling Haaland? They both have great fixtures this week, so it doesn't make too much sense. But between those two, you'd arguably sell Erling Haaland because he's far more expensive and his fixture is slightly tougher on paper. But I think Salah can do really well against Aston Villa. He scored last season at Anfield against this opposition, and he seems to get double-digit haul after double-digit haul. He even got 2 assists in the Champions League against Bayer Leverkusen, so I'm very confident in this pick, and I'll probably captain him in most weeks. Bryan Mbeumo is also solid against Bournemouth at home. He's another one that I don't want to sell just yet, but from Game Week 14 onwards, I think there's definitely a case to sell Bryan Mbeumo, and Rodgers and Semenyo might be better picks from that point onwards. So there are many difficult decisions to be made in my midfield and forward line, and probably the easiest thing to do in my case is upgrading my defenders because the vast majority of them are terrible. I'm quite keen on going for a 3-4-3 formation this week, and Dominic Solanke is definitely a hold against Ipswich Town. It goes without saying. Even on the wild card, I'd recommend going for a Spurs attacker to target this fixture, and then you could sell them around Gameweek 12 or 13, especially if you've got multiple free transfers at your disposal. I've currently got 3, but I used my wild card back in Gameweek 6. But Solanke is definitely going to be a hold and a captaincy option in Gameweek 11. I'd bench him against Man City, where I don't expect him to do much, although the citizens are there to be targeted. Defensively, I think the attackers from Spurs can cause some problems and score some goals, but I think Solanke is still a decent choice in the mid-price range, but not the best overall. I think Jackson is probably better from Gameweek 12 and beyond, and you've also got Isak, as I mentioned earlier. I think they're the two to really target beyond Gameweek 11, but this is a great fixture for Spurs, and it wouldn't surprise me if they scored 4 or 5 against Ipswich Town. My second forward could be Cunha. If I sell Erling Haaland and decide to spread the funds and buy Mohamed Salah, I'd still have enough money in the bank to then upgrade Foden to Saka by Gameweek 12. That's another possibility for my setup, but it's not locked in and set in stone because I still think keeping Erling Haaland is viable, and you can buy Mohamed Salah at the same time. It would just mean a weaker bench and arguably a weaker 15-man squad as a result. But I do like Cunha against Southampton at home. The same goes for Strand Larson. There isn't much separating the two, but I think Cunha is worth the extra million because of the bonus points potential and the creativity. He is a talismanic figure for Wolves and very, very good player to watch. He's good on the ball and causes a lot of problems for opposition defenders. I could see him being the highest scoring forward, or at least right up there until Gameweek 18, simply because Wolves have the best fixture run in that time frame. And finally, I'm going for Chris Wood once again against his former club. He scored a hat-trick against them last time out at St James's Park in one of Nuno Espirito Santo's first games at the club, and I do back Chris Wood, who just won the Player of the Month award in the Premier League. He has had a great season so far, and he's been my best pick by some distance. I've owned him since Gameweek 1, and his consistency has been unrivaled, particularly at this price point and below. My bench would include the following. Valdimarsson is a permanent backup goalkeeper. It's quite clear that Fabianski is the better option at 4 million. Semenyo is first on my bench, and I could feasibly start him. And if Cole Palmer were to miss out, that is a great option to have coming off the bench, if only that were the case in Gameweek 10 when he got that double-digit haul against Manchester City. I would still have Vandenberg and Mikolenko, which looks quite weak, but for a bench, it looks quite solid, and that could get quite a few points, especially through Semenyo alone. But in terms of the captaincy, I'm currently leaning towards Salah. If I buy him in, I'm very confident I'm going to captain him for the next couple of weeks. I either jinx him or I get some points. Either way, I'm not really too mindful about that. Solanke would be the vice, and the news that Richarlison will be out for quite some time only plays further into Solanke's hands. He's going to have more expected minutes and also get a lot of chances against Ipswich Town. He could score another brace or even a hat-trick, especially considering his recent form in the last 2 matches. Now, it does seem like feast or famine for Dominic Solanke. He either gets no chances at all, like he did against Brighton and in subsequent fixtures like Crystal Palace, or he gets so many opportunities and he will take them because he's a good finisher and gets into some very strong positions, and his creativity is also quite decent. He links up play very well with the other Spurs attackers. Heung-min Son and Solanke could cause a lot of damage to Ipswich Town. So he's definitely a captaincy consideration for me. Even Phil Foden against Brighton, he scored a brace at the Amex Stadium last time out. Cunha's an enticing option because of the fixture against Southampton. Chris Wood is dependable and very consistent. Brian Mbeumo facing Bournemouth at home is also very encouraging, and Cole Palmer is always a decent shout. So I think you can make a case for all of my midfielders and attackers, but I'm going for Salah and Dominic Solanke as things stand. If I decide to keep Erling Haaland and not buy Mohamed Salah, it will be between Erling Haaland and Solanke for the captaincy, as I'll show you very soon, because I've got some contingency plans just in case if we get any news in the next day or so that Cole Palmer is out for several game weeks. Using the website FPL.team, I can show the alternatives of keeping Erling Haaland and selling Cole Palmer instead. David Raya would be in goal with a back three of Gabriel, Mikolenko and Ait-Nouri. FPL.team do recommend Mikolenko over Rico Lewis, but I don't really see either of them doing particularly well in Gameweek 11. Brian Mbeumo, Garnacho, Semenyo and Salah would still be a very strong midfield. Admittedly, it looks a lot different compared to what I showed you throughout most of this video, and Semenyo being the starting 11 alongside another budget midfielder does seem a bit weaker on paper, but I think those two have great fixtures in Game Week 11. Solanke, Haaland and Chris Wood remains a very strong front three, arguably even stronger, with Cunha of course being the alternative to Erling Haaland, and he's still nowhere near those levels, but the Southampton at home fixture does level the playing field, and I've got 1.3 million left in the bank by keeping Erling Haaland and buying Mohamed Salah, who would be my captain in this case, and Haaland would get the vice-captaincy, but you could certainly make a case for Dominic Solanke or the other attackers, even Garnacho, facing Leicester City at home. My bench includes Valdimarsson, Rodgers, Lewis and Van den Berg, and ultimately with free transfers available, I have so many different options at my disposal. I can even change my goalkeeper, make another defender transfer, or go in a different direction with my midfielders and attackers. Ultimately, there's a lot of different things to do, and my defensive line is the biggest issue, and there are so many weaknesses in that position. So for the next couple of weeks, I could see myself making 2 or 3 changes in that position. If you haven't already, check the link in the description below for Drafthound. I'd highly recommend it, and many of you are signing up using that link and talking about how useful and fun the website is to use. Now, their top recommendations for my transfers have changed over the week. Palmer and Foden out to Salah and Garnacho is their top recommendation, and in second place is Gabriel and Palmer to Lewis Hall and Salah, and they've got even more suggestions beyond the top 3, but also Gabriel and Foden to Gvardiol and Son. They are all great choices, and in terms of their optimization tool, they are recommending Semenyo and Gabriel in the starting 11 over Van den Berg and Rodgers, with Mbeumo as the vice-captain and Haaland keeping the armband. This is without making any transfers, by the way, so that will be my bust team if I decide to roll once again and have 4 free transfers in Game Week 12, which is still a possibility for me, by the way, but I'm inclined to use my free transfers and bolster certain positions, particularly my defensive line, and Drafthound are much keener on Solanke with his upturn in form compared to a few weeks ago, and that makes complete sense, and they've always backed this fixture against Ipswich Town. That was the fixture I kept Solanke for, but luckily enough, he did produce a massive return against Aston Villa in the process. The expected points is 57.5 without making any transfers, and I've got 1.1 million in the bank. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Would you make transfers in my case? And if so, how would you buy Mohamed Salah? Or would you even go for Salah at all? Do you think it's not the best time to buy him and maybe wait until Game Week 12 or 14? Of course, they play Southampton away in the following Game Week after the international break, and Salah hasn't been called up to Egypt for the next set of AFCON qualifiers. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Our aim is to get this podcast to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It would go a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 11 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.